Welcome to the Old Pine Road Podcast.
It makes us look human and like we're idiots trying to put this together, which we are. And with that, I'd like to welcome everybody to the Old Pine Road Podcast. I'm Mr. David Walters, joined by
Max Wyrock, how you guys doing?
It is great to be here with all of you, and by all of you, I mean the camera that is sitting up in our studio pointing at us. It's really good to see you. This is, neither of us has any experience in podcasting, not much in like public speaking or in the way of just being out there.
Well, you're on debate team.
I was on debate. That's a big deal.
I mean,
I credit everything I have to this day to debate.
I don't want to debate you on this podcast, David.
I'm a master debater. That's a great point. But we don't have any experience with running a podcast. We're not good at it. We don't have any dreams of being good at it.
I actually kind of do.
I'm more like Joe Schmo Rogan. Joe Schmogan, if you will. But this isn't going to be good. Right now, as we speak, I'm not even sure if the computer's recording our voice. I don't know if any of this is working.
I have faith that it is.
That's all faith
We're
is.
rolling on faith.
Believe regardless. And that's what we're doing, and we're hoping this works out. So we're going to try to find our groove here, and we'll be trying to drop an episode monthly, more if we can, but at least monthly. And our point, what are we trying to accomplish? And I'm saying that out loud. I'm not asking you guys or Max. I'm literally asking myself, what am I doing here?
Maybe giving a little insight as to what we do.
So yeah, I still don't know
on
what
a
we're doing.
day-to-day or
still
on
don't
a
know what we're
monthly basis.
Still haven't figured it out. I'm just talking.
Well, no better time to figure it out than right now,
right
baby.
now. That's what we're here for. But yeah, we're trying to give you guys some insight. I'm a pretty antisocial bloke. Max here is usually the life of the party. But I like to hide in dark corners. And so the hope is that this kind of gives you guys some opportunities to see us a little behind the scenes.
I had to push him just to get him into the middle of the room.
I tripped. But we're gonna go into it. So let's start off. We're gonna talk a little bit about the space we're in. This is the River Street Studio, aka the upstairs to my home. I live here. I sleep right underneath here. That's why I'm wearing my robe. It's not a style choice. I just woke up.
It's a cool robe. Come on.
It is pretty sexy. I do feel good walking around. I feel like
one of them.
If like guys. Hugh Hefner was like poor and broke, and like didn't have all the ladies or the money or the friends, or like the land or the property or like all the things that he does, skill, talent, good looks, a good attitude, personality. I'm kind of like that. Just like him. Just like him.
Pretty much.
Fun facts about the studio that we're in. This room was the room. This is one of my dad's bedrooms growing up. He kind of bounced around between this room and that room. Other fun facts I got to learn when I bought the house that I didn't want to know. My mom lost her virginity here.
I didn't know you were gonna divulge
I think that's
kind
one
of information.
I think that's one of the first things we should cover because it's in my mind all the time, just kind of eating away at it.
What year are we talking about here?
I don't know. I didn't. There was no follow-up question to that information. There wasn't. I got the information. I didn't want it in the first place. I didn't want to file it away in there. But now it's just kind of up there and it's front and center every time I open up the old River Street Studio.
Inspiration. Inspiration.
There's a lot of history here. So like I grew up coming here and whatnot. It's kind of cool. This upstairs area was always pretty empty. It was kind of just spare bedrooms. So
when you're after your
just growing up
after
after Dad and everybody moved out. My dad was the youngest. So I think him and my mom lived here for a while too. I might have been conceived here. I don't know.
Oh, really?
There's a chance
What?
they were living on and off in between here and those other
You
places.
never told me that.
Yeah, I just learned it. I did an interview.
really?
Yeah, I grilled my mom last week. I sat her down and I was like, "Listen, you're gonna talk to me.
I want the facts,
I want
Mom.
the facts now."
That sounds fun.
So he did. I mean, it was cool. It was cool. There was some fun stuff, and that was one of them.
Good.
She did spend some time living here in between spots. So
Okay.
yeah, steeped in history,
Steeped
deep
in
personal history here. This carpet
Even
is
some
the-
stuff I didn't know.
or that you didn't want to know. A lot of it. Most of
It's
it.
interesting.
The carpet's original.
No way.
And that's about it. I don't know what the
I love these.
I don't know what the
carpets,
camera can see. I think it can see some of the tapestries hanging. I know for a fact, though, if you're listening to this, you can't see shit. So, Max, if you could describe the room in detail.
All right. So, the wall I'm looking towards is sloped towards the ceiling. And then it comes down, and there's soundproof paneling on it going up to the ceiling. There's an array of tapestries. I always say
What's your favorite
you
tapestry?
can tell a lot about somebody by what their favorite tapestry in here is.
Everybody has the same one. Everybody has
Nope.
the one. And it's not on camera at all.
That's
And I don't think we should talk about it anymore.
Probably not.
I think we should just move.
I
on.
like the Wisconsin flag personally.
It was cool. This flag hung out on the garage for a while, but it started falling apart, so I brought it in here. But
And then coming towards the wall behind me. Didn't mean to cut you off there, David. We got some more soundproof.
you mean there's a whole other wall?
Matter of fact, there's two more that I haven't mentioned yet.
Speak English, Doc. We ain't scientists.
Another wall there. We got a window.
We're up to 3 walls, folks.
There's a kind of a blanket covering the window. Then the wall opposite is the doorway, then a window to the office with the computer.
I could spin the camera around and give the people watching a chance to see that. I also won't be doing that.
Stay tuned to the next
Stay tuned.
podcast.
Come to episode 4.
We might show you if you're good.
No. Anyways, lots of history here in the studio. We spent some time in here this month.
We did.
We spent a lot of time. We were working on album number 2. And as we're working on album number 2, one thing that I've really struggled with, again, is just sharing what, why, when, where, any information about what we're doing, actually. I honestly struggle with all of it.
Even how?
Just our schedule. Yeah, every step of the way. So again, that's kind of the purpose of this podcast, to give all 3 of our fans the opportunity to learn a little bit more about us and about the Old Pine Road.
And about the Old Pine Way.
The Old Pine Way. It's been a journey, and most of it not very good.
Ah, come on.
Almost
Come
all of
on.
it.
Come on.
So I want to get into it. We're going to talk about the history of the Old Pine Road, and I've divided it into 2 sections. We have history of OPRB BM, that means before Max, and then we have AM, which is after Max. Max is to the Old Pine Road kind of like what the comet was to the dinosaurs. It changed everything. it made everything different. Highly chaotic, destructive period.
But the cockroaches survived.
The cockroaches survived. Thrived.
Matter of fact, they did great.
Matter of fact, life's been good for them
High off
cockroaches.
the hog. Yeah.
That's great. I actually wrote down my mom lost her virginity here. I thought that would be a good thing to This
Gonna
is
circle on back to that.
funny. Quinn makes your. I wrote it down. I'm
In case y'all forgot.
feeling pretty terrible about it. Also, my notes are about 4 lines. That's all we got for this format. So there's gonna be a lot of rambling, a lot of talking over just general,
Improvising, ad-libbing,
a lot of unprofessional bullshit.
talking mad smack.
Which is almost how you could describe the Old Pine Road Band. Unprofessional bullshit.
Getting dark here, David Walters.
I'm known to self-deprecate a time or two. Old Pine Road Band, BM. Before Max. I started Old Pine Road Band probably about 10 years ago.
10 years, huh?
I actually think that we have now crossed the decade threshold.
Congratulations,
Fun
man.
fact, I've been telling everybody it's been 10 years. Even though it's only been like 7, 8. I just kind of round. Once I hit like above 6, that just in my mind became 10 years.
Oh, that's math.
Anything more than
That's
6
simple
years is a
math.
decade. I think we
Yep.
can all agree on that. So
Yep.
we have been going for a decade. I don't think I ever saw music as a career at any point in my life, and still don't really. But I've been doing it full time for almost 6 years now. So I think I'm going to have to jump on the train.
Better get used to it.
I think at some point I'm going to have to acknowledge that it is my career.
When are you thinking about doing that?
Next episode.
Oh, this next episode.
This is a journey. This is a
We got a
journey
lot
we're on.
this next episode.
This next episode is going to be huge. 4 hours. But yeah, I never saw it as a way to like make a living. So I don't think I ever put effort into it or really thought it was going to be anything. I kind of was just resigned to like working at Shopko for $7.50 an hour for my
That being said,
douchebag manager.
you have put a lot into it.
Yeah. I can shit on
knocking
my
yourself.
past
You're
and
knocking
still be
yourself.
grateful and yeah. But that's where I was. I was working for Jeremy at Shopko. And I just want to take a second here and bring up Jeremy at Shopko. You fucking worthless piece of shit. I hate your guts. I got hired at Shopko for minimum wage, $7.25. I dropped out of high school. I was living in my buddy's 1-bedroom apartment. So he had the living room, I had the bedroom, and we split it. And that place was gross, man. It was nasty. And I worked at Shopko for 3 months at $7.25. I came in and was like all excited for my 3-month review. Like, oh, I'm finally gonna get a raise. And then Jeremy, I'm telling you, this guy was just a sack of human shit with a buzz cut.
I can smell him.
You've never met him before, and you know what he looks like. I know that.
Yeah.
Sat across from me and told me that I wasn't gonna get my 25-cent an hour raise after like 3 months of just
Perfect.
Oh no, not perfect. I'm not saying I was making $7.25 an hour. I was late my first day, but I'm saying I improved,
Yeah.
and I was certainly worth more than $7.25. I thought so. Jeremy didn't think so, that was kind of my signal of like, okay, like if you're just a bum like I was, and you're gonna work for people in a retail setting, that line of work is really just kind of about milking those people below you. Like I did the manager training at a store that rhymes with Schmenards, and I remember that was what the bulk of it was just like, how to dangle the carrot for your lower coworkers. And
Well, look at Shopko now. You won.
Booming.
You won.
Who's the last man standing now? I'm not giving background on that to shit on Menards or Shopko, although I do really enjoy that, in shitting on my former employers and employee, whatever. But I was in a position where like that's what I was doing, and that's what I was gonna do, foreseeably, like forever. And then I got fired from Menards. Maybe we won't dive into that, but we'll go into that in another next episode. I got fired, and after that, I ended up working. I got hired for I think $7.50 an hour at the local music store, really bumping up my self-worth and value there. But what that did
But
for
at least
me,
you were working with music.
I was working with
stuff.
something that I loved, and then I realized I would rather, I'd rather fail at something I love than succeed at this stuff that I really hated, which was just retail and all the other stuff besides music. So that's when I made the decision to start pursuing music more seriously.
Don't you think if it wouldn't have been music, it would have eventually probably you'd have want to do something else?
I don't think
made
so
you more
because
money, wouldn't you have?
I you know, when I was at Menards, like I really like Schmenards. I really did kind of subscribe to the like, okay, like this is where you're at. Show up every day, bust your butt, work your butt off, and climb the ranks. And I did go from part time to full time, and then I had to work overnights for a month. I just became, when you just become everybody else, the manager's bitch. When you're like a full time employee at these places, you're just like your manager's bitch, and 90% of the time the manager's just not doing shit. And if any of them are watching this, I still fucking hate you. But anyways, I came to realize like that's what it was going to be. It was going to be like grinding, and maybe if I got lucky, I would eventually get into a position where like I could make a living off of it. But that living, I mean, would really be not living, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Making money, not living.
Yeah.
And so that was when I decided to start doing music. I joined a band called Kyle Mertz in That Devil Music Band. I don't know how much of history of this we've gone into.
Tiny bit.
It was my first like paying band. I'd been in a bunch of bands up to that point. I think every kid who plays guitar probably goes through 5-6 bands.
Yeah.
And I had been through 5-6 bands before I got my first paying gig. And sometimes it did pay.
Took me a second.
Sometimes. But then I got fired from that. That was
How come? If you don't mind me asking.
I think the issue was they were a straight country band, like a top 40 country band. Like, doing like the Jason Aldean and that stuff, which I'm not, knocking, but it wasn't my cup of tea. But they wanted like a level of perfectionism. Like they wanted the solos to be just like the album was. Oh. Meanwhile, like I was lucky to make $50 a show. Yeah. I'm practicing once a week on top of that. We never practiced. This band had a weekly practice we all had to be at. And then if everything went well, maybe we'd make 50, maybe we'd make, whatever. But it did teach me some ins of the business and how that went going, or how that worked out. And then yeah, they let me know that I was no longer in the band. They got a different guitar player, and that was the day Old Pine Road was born. Oh. I had a friend who I had been jamming with at an open mic. I was so hurt by that. That was such a tough pill to swallow, because like I was finally in a paying band, like making some money, and then like to be let go because I wasn't achieving a level of perfection that nobody in the band was achieving, let alone like the guy, like, I'm not going to go too deep into this because these people still live and work in the community. But the people I was working for at the time expected a level of perfection of me none of them were capable of achieving themselves. And it was just like, okay, well, that felt really good. This is bullshit. I'm going to go ahead and start my own band. And so I did. I talked to my buddy Zach Hext, who was playing drums, cajon, percussion. He's got that game store in town. You met him. Kai Mountjoy was a mandolin player. He came and jammed with us, and my buddy Jeff Chisever. So it was primarily me, Zach, and Jeff. And we did quite a few shows like that, quite a few years like that. When we first started gigging, Zach had a minivan, and he would drive us to all the gigs. So it was just chucking around in a minivan, and every night we'd have to load, unload everything. It was such a pain in the ass. That was the worst part. Again, not making anything like money-wise, just trying to get our feet in the door. Eventually, Jeff went to school. He went to college, I think, down in Point. And now I think he's living over in Virginia or something. Kai and I had a falling out over cables. And next episode. And then Zach ended up running his parents' business for a while. They had like a cafe that we did an open mic at, and I think he kind of took over operating that. Okay. And now he has another business, a game store in town. But That was where we started.
What's the game store called?
Magic Man Games. Magic
Okay.
Man. Zach did like a lot of magic. He was like he's a magician. He does like kids parties and shows and
Oh,
stuff
cool.
like that. Really cool. Yeah.
That is cool. I've always liked magic.
Magicians?
I've always liked magic.
Magic, okay. We're all
Magic.
magicians. We're all just carrying around an illusion.
Oh, that's all you have to do to be a magician?
That's it. We're all magicians.
Hell.
Um,
Thanks for telling me.
I am rambling. I'm sorry. It's not. We're not going back and forth much here. I'll get to you.
going back and
We're
forth?
just
What are you
we
talking
got we
about?
got to cover the BM. We got to cover the BM before
We're going to get
Max.
that BM out.
We got to establish where this all started. That's why I went into my retail, like
Hey.
my mental state and where I was.
We're good.
I was like, all right. So we started gigging. We played for a couple of years like that. And then eventually people just had to go back to work. So one thing you learn with a band is like, it's a hobby for 90% of people, and that can even apply to some full-time musicians, like where it's a hobby for them. They're, everybody has different motivations, reasons for doing it. And that made it really hard, to find people that could stick around,
Yeah.
So we did. We had some bouncing around. After Zach went over to take care of his parents' business, my buddy Scott LaRock. Scott's mom worked at a bar called the Pea Patch Motel and Saloon. They're going to come up on this podcast all the time, I'm sure. Scott's mom worked there, and when Scott was probably about 15 years old, he started showing up at like open mics. He'd come to our shows and like sit in with us sometimes and just jam. So we'd have our drummer on a drum kit and a cajon player.
Oh, okay.
And then when Zach had to step away, Scott stepped up and took over that full-time drumming role. So for probably like 3, maybe even 4 years, maybe not that long. I'm really bad with time. Under a decade.
Well under a decade.
Well under a decade.
Okay, yeah.
Scott and I,
Pinpoint that.
Scott and I, we were the Old Pine Road band.
Just you guys.
Just us two.
Were you looping?
Every now and then Jeff, if
Were
he
you
came.
looping?
No,
anything?
not at that time. No,
Nothing at all?
No, it was very
Okay.
much, and my set was a lot of like.
Was it acoustic guitar?
It was acoustic.
What
It
kind
was
of-
a lot of like Brown Eyed Girl.
What kind of get fiddle
Wish
did
you
you
were
have
here.
back then?
A what?
What kind of get fiddle did you have back then?
Get fiddle? What's a get fiddle?
Just
what
slang
kind
for
of
a guitar.
I've never heard this term in my life.
Oh, well, now you did.
Okay. I think, when I first started, I had like an Alvarez that I bought. My buddy had it hanging on his wall for like a year or a couple years, and he sold it to me for $50, and I took it home, and as soon as I got it home, the back started spidering. It had just like dried out, and like,
Yeah.
but because it was in that environment, it was fine. So as soon as I took it out, it was like the, I don't know, it just started crumbling. It just started to fall apart. I glued it together.
Had a pickup though.
It had a pickup, big body on it, and an okay sound.
I've had, I haven't had any, but I've played a couple. Actually, pretty nice.
I gigged on it for years. I bought it for $50 off the wall, glued it together. It was just beat to hell. And then I borrowed it to somebody to teach themselves guitar. Never heard anything else about it. A couple years ago, I was at the pawn shop, and there it was.
Oh.
Yeah, the guitar. And they wanted like $100 for it.
You said no.
Yeah, I was like, I know this guitar's not worth that.
Man, it would have been a historical
Yeah,
piece, though.
I
You know.
So yeah, that's we started gigging. It was me, Zach, sometimes Jeff, but it was primarily me and Scott. And then Scott just he got overwhelmed with work and stuff like that, and it's tough. Like when I first started gigging, I was still at the music store, so I'd work at the music store on like Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I think Sundays too at the end. I can't really remember. But then I was also teaching the other days of the week. But like having to be at the store at 9 a.m. on Saturday when you were just gigging the night before until midnight 1 and
Yeah.
got a gig that night. Like it just started. It was such a hassle, and that's why I had to like eventually the gigs got to be so, consistent that I had to step back from the music store. Scott had that trouble, and he ended up going back to work and stepping away from the band. And that's when I called my buddy Thor, who I had met. And kind of the same thing. Like, he showed up at open mics, started jamming with me at open mics.
That's how you met
him? He had jammed with Dig Deep. Yeah, well, I met him through Sarah, the girl I was dating. He was a family friend of theirs. And then he came to a couple open mics. So I had met and jammed with him a couple times. And New Year's Eve was coming up, and I needed a drummer. And I was like, please.
Yeah.
So he came up. And for probably that first year, it was really just me and Thor. We had Sean, that bass player, sit in with us for a little while. But he had some legal issues that made it hard for him to gig regularly with us. And then Thor and I added Chris Skinner. So so Thor and I gigged for probably about a year, just me and Thor, doing an acoustic thing. I think that's when I started incorporating the loop pedal.
Okay.
I think when Thor joined, I was starting to toy around with that. And then, Thor and I were doing what we could. We met Chris, and Chris started jamming with us. I can't really remember how did Chris first start jamming with us? You know what it was? It was at the Wolf's Den. We were playing a show at the Wolf's Den in Mercer. Thor and I had a show booked, and we messaged Chris, and we're just like, hey, Chris is a legend in the music scene up here. Like, Chris has been around forever. That Chapman stick, everybody that sees that remembers that. And so Chris was renowned. We invited him to come jam with us at the Wolf's Den. He came and sat in, and that was the beginning of me, Chris, and Thor. And that was our lineup then. For probably a year, it was me, Chris, and Thor, pretty much exclusively. Chris playing the Chapman stick, kind of emulating a bass while doing some other things. Thor with his kit washboard combo, and then I was really starting to get into the looping on the guitar, and we were building that. We had a wedding scheduled. Well, I guess so. With that lineup, we managed to get booked for Jack Pine, which is a really cool music festival in northern Wisconsin. Really popular. Some cool acts that year. It was Horseshoes, Dig Deep. God, what's that band out of Ohio? The Tillers. I think they're out of Ohio. I'm almost positive they are. Either way, there was some really great bands in that lineup. We got offered to do it and jumped on it, and put up a pretty good show. But the night before our show, I was vibing around with Mr. Scotticus Kirby, another Northwoods music legend. And I remember I was sitting watching the show, and I saw Scott come in. I was really excited to see him because I didn't know anybody there. I've never been a social butterfly. I'd gigged with Scott in the past before. Anyway, Scott let me come back to his site with him. I followed him, basically, at a distance, and snuck my way in there.
He let you. Followed him at a distance.
Scott had 2 musicians at his site with him, Kalani, and of course Max over here, and that was a magical moment. I think that night we jammed. I don't remember. I know I went to this concert with Thor. Like, we went there together. I think we went. Maybe we didn't ride together, but either way, we went together. But before the final set, Thor disappeared, and I just didn't see him the rest of the night.
That happens at Jack Pine. Sometimes your friends just disappear, and you don't see them for days.
You won't see him for a while. But I remember that night, I walked back to the tent at 5 in the morning, and Thor was assuming I was asleep or whatever, but he wandered in right around the same time. And,
so you guys
what's
both
up, bud? We were both like, hey, we found each other.
Had a little long night.
A little Sam and Frodo moment.
All right. Yeah.
But yeah, then we met there. A month or two goes by, and we have a show down in
Cadott.
Was it Cadott? It was at a wedding. It was somebody's wedding.
I thought it was Cadott.
You're probably right.
Somewhere in that neighborhood.
Somebody's wedding, somewhere in that area. I'm on my way down to the wedding, and I get a call from Chris that he's not going to make it to the show. So now we're going to a wedding, which is, that's a big deal. It's not like your
Gotta
weekly
put on the
bar
Ritz.
gig.
You gotta put on the
Yeah,
Ritz.
and we're going now with one less member. I called Max out of the blue and was like, will you come do the show? And he said yes. And we got there. Thor and I set up our stuff. And then I'm walking around just kind of doing my thing, sneaking a smoke or whatever. And some dude walks up to me. You must be David, huh? Like, didn't know who he was. And it was Max's friend Johnny, who Max brought along. And I didn't see you because you had already gotten in line for the food.
Oh.
you got there and the first thing you did was you went and got in line to eat.
They told me to.
It was great food. Remember they had like
Tacos.
it was like wasn't that taco bowls or
Yeah.
like
They had a variety of different ways
Yeah.
to eat taco fillings.
that was a pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's a pretty cool taco bar.
Go with tacos, you know.
Yeah, you can't go wrong. Can't go
Tacos
wrong.
and weddings, that seems right to me.
If I'm a bride, I don't think I'd touch a taco or go anywhere near anybody with their taco fingers.
That's
but
never gonna happen to you, so you're never gonna have
never
to worry
say
about
never. It's 2023, almost
that.
2024.
Okay.
You can dress however you want. Anyways, we jammed together that gig and have been thick as thieves ever since. I think that kind of sums up pre-Max Old Pine Road Band.
Oof.
You know what? It sums up pre-gigging Old Pine Road Band. Recording, I think I started that process before we met the first album.
Okay. Yeah. Just in the
Yeah, started in
the apartment.
In the apartment, the old. I had an apartment in the
The
middle
old
of town.
Pine Artment.
And I got like just a real cheap like interface, like one of those solo ones, and started putting together what became Laying Roots. I think the first song that I started recording was Paper Hands, which is funny because Paper Hands is probably the furthest from what our sound
Yeah.
has ultimately become, because it was just like a blues song or blues funk,
Well,
whatever.
yeah.
But that's where I started recording and figuring that out. And that first album, I did most of the parts myself. Thor did all the percussion on it over the course of like 2 summers. We would just like, the first time we just like went to his house and set up like sheets in a wall all around him and like enclosed him in his living room. And we did half the drums there and we did the other half at Sean's studio.
Oh, really?
His art studio in his garage. Yeah, his
cool.
art studio. We did the same thing. Set up a wall of blankets and sheets around him, and did all the percussion. And then you came in and added some sick leads on the album. Played some tunes. You did Hemlocks with me on there. Hemlocks was the first song I wrote here. Every other song was wrote, God, all over the place. I think Paper Hands I started writing when I was probably like 19.
Oh, dang.
Yeah. I became a dad at 19. And
That's young. Sometimes I forget.
yeah, like I was a full-blown dad at 19.
Yeah,
And you
that
know,
changes things.
yeah. Well, I was a dad at 19, and I think when I found out that I was going to be a dad, I think again I was making like $7.50 an hour. I was still at Shopko. So
Oh, really?
yeah, I was making like under $8 an hour, and then I found out I'm gonna have a kid with somebody who I'm not in a relationship with
Yeah.
and not close to, or whatever. But yeah, that was a pretty terrifying time.
I can imagine.
And that's when I wrote Paper Hands. Yeah, and that was like the first song I recorded. So
Care to
Laying
lend us
Roots.
any insight in the?
I think
Into the
I
lyrics?
think the lyrics are pretty like kind of.
Anything we should know?
There was some stuff about me complaining about like work. Like there's a line in there about like keep your head down, eye straight, do what I say, hear what I tell you, don't you dare look away. And that's about like my boss, like just telling you to just be a cog.
Yeah.
Just keep spinning, be a
Yeah.
cog, don't ask questions. And there's a line in there about I've never seen something so beautiful, so mean. And that's talking about certain partners at the time and relationships. So we'll get in that in the next podcast.
David got himself a catchphrase.
I'm gonna lean into that. Before we go any farther, I'm gonna take a second here. I'm gonna make sure our video's still going and our audio here. Max, you want to talk to them? Oh, what happened here? Oh, there we go.
Well, folks, really enjoying doing this.
I went to go look at the computer.
Doing this cast for you.
The whole screen is just blue.
Oh.
I was like, oh.
Dubba dee dubba die.
Must be a screensaver.
We got some time left here. We got another like 10, 15 minutes, I
Oh, good.
suppose.
Good.
If we want it to be that long. This can be as long as we want. We can do whatever we want. We're adult men.
I could eat candy for breakfast if I wanted to.
Every day. And I do. My dentist hates it, but I love it.
You have a dentist?
Used to. So yeah, I think that covers the history of.
Oh, we
kind
got the
of
4 lines of notes
where
done?
we started. I think we've covered all of them. Don't forget my mom lost her virginity here. That's a big one.
That's pretty much the... If you're going to take anything away from this podcast,
That's the
that
only
would
thing.
be the thing to take
The
away.
only one, yeah.
Disregard everything else.
Forget about it. They already have. All 3 of you listening to this. And
That's being generous.
That's you and me included.
I'm not going to listen to this. What are you talking about? Do I have to?
We really need them subscribers, buddy.
What if I get somebody else to listen to it? Then am I off the hook?
You only got to get 3 other people.
And then I don't?
And then they all have to get 3 other people.
That's going to be tough.
The Old Pine Road Pyramid Scheme.
I love it. I love it.
Let's talk a little bit about you, Max. I think I just ranted for like the last 20 minutes, so let's let you rant a bit here. Where did your musical journey start? Where were some of your first steps into music?
Well, I've been playing with guitars since I was about 10, and
How'd you get your first guitar?
for my 10th birthday, I think it was a black, like, Harmony catalog guitar with a white pickguard. The frets were super sharp.
On the edges, they always stick out.
Yeah.
Get a few good slices in there.
Took some lessons, and they wanted me to play acoustic in the lessons, but I was a little more interested in electric at the time.
Rocking out.
Yeah.
Were you starting like the Zeppelin?
No, not really. I was more into punk
Oh,
at the time.
okay.
Yeah. Liked Green Day a lot, and then I moved on to like harder stuff, harder punk.
Like the Ramones.
Well, I like the Ramones, but more like the Dead Kennedys, Misfits,
Awesome.
Black Flag, like harder stuff.
Mother.
Yeah,
Sweet.
that's Danzig. Yeah, a little later. Good stuff.
Is it Danzig? That's not a
his
Misfits?
solo stuff.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. But yeah, I also played cello at that same time.
That's right.
in
That had to
school.
be a pain.
I-
Cello.
It was fun.
Did you have
Maybe
to
a
haul
pain
it
to
around
haul it
lessons? That's a...
Well, I mean, it was in school.
Oh, okay.
So,
Okay. You
I
played
mean, I
it
didn't
in
have
your
to
school.
take it home all the time.
That's really cool.
Yeah, so
What school was that?
DC Everest.
DC Everest had a strings program that had cello and...
Yeah, they have orchestra.
No kidding.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Why? Yours,
It didn't.
Oh, really?
I think they might have expanded to include it.
that was always
I think that pit orchestra had some strings when we saw the Beauty and the Beast play in town here.
Oh, did it?
Yeah,
Okay.
they had some strings going on, but historically, I don't think we had a string section. It's pretty
As far
pretty
as-
rare
Is it?
because, like when I worked in the music store, we handled all the band rental accounts up here,
Right.
and band in general is pretty expensive. Like
Yeah.
to rent your instrument, to maintain it, it's a little bit of a investment, and so you just don't see a lot of strings programs because of that.
Yeah.
Strings are a little bit more expensive, I think, to maintain.
Yeah, they are.
And
Different
repair.
beast.
Yeah,
Different
for
beast,
sure,
yeah.
for sure. And teachers are fewer and far between. So That's cool that your school had that program.
My
That's,
teacher was
awesome.
Mr. Paul Zopel.
Oh, is that Justin's
His
dad?
dad,
Oh,
yeah.
cool.
He was a very good teacher, very good.
For our
very good
listeners,
guy.
Justin is a fantastic. Is it an upright player
I think he plays a variety of instruments
string
as far as I
instruments.
know.
or what band?
I know he plays with Scott Kirby and a variety of different people around Wausau.
I think that's where I've seen him with Scott and maybe with Tyler from Malarkeys. I think I've seen him post about him.
Yeah.
So cool. His dad taught you cello, and you played cello. You were into punk on the guitar.
Then I started getting a little more into like Zeppelin and Grateful Dead,
Okay.
stuff like that.
It's
And,
more of the jam band stuff.
yeah, starting to improvise on guitar.
I think that was like a turning point for me. Was like just being introduced to Zeppelin.
Yeah.
I can remember that clearly. My cousin was living here in this room. and
Introducing you to
Yeah,
Zeppelin.
and she had a bunch of burned CDs that she had, and
Nice.
Zeppelin, Sabbath. Up to that point, I'd been listening to Pink Floyd and whatnot, so I was into some good music, but
Yeah.
she expanded that, and so I just remember Zeppelin. I was like, oh shit.
Remember a friend of mine gave me a record album I still love, Led Zeppelin 4, and I was
Is that the one with the spinning faces?
and that's the one with the guy carrying the bundle of sticks on it.
Oh, okay.
I was like reading The Hobbit at the time, just like getting really into it,
Sweet.
It was good times. And then, yeah, when me and my friends were just like improvising, playing with like a bunch of fuzz, and, like
Starting to
heavy, kind of like slow melodic stuff, and just jamming.
Oh, that's
I was
cool.
playing drums, bass, and guitar. And then eventually, sometime around that time, fiddled with mandolins and like music stores and stuff.
Were you starting to like listen a little bit to like bluegrass and folk music?
Yeah, actually I was listening to Old and in the Way a little bit, which was a bluegrass band Jerry Garcia was in for a while. And then Yonder Mountain String Band, jam, grass kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And fiddling with a mandolin once in a while in a music store. And then my dad got me one when I was probably 17 or 18, something like that.
Okay. So
Little
on the
Washburn.
verge of finishing school,
Yeah,
and he got you a Washburn mandolin. Do you remember, was it birthday, Christmas, or just
one of those.
okay?
Probably Christmas, I think, honestly.
Oh, cool.
And yeah, by that time, I was still playing some electric, but all my friends had acoustics too, so just carrying an acoustic everywhere we went. And
It's wild. Like, Washburn guitars and some of those cheaper guitar brands will maybe get a little flack from like I still get flack for playing a Breedlove. As,
Only by me.
as much as I do. Yeah, looking at you over there. But
no, dude,
But those, I started on an Oscar Schmidt by Washburn, because it was affordable.
I've had a really nice Washburn guitar before too.
That's it's wild.
Two of
It's
them.
wild to think how many people's musical everything probably started with like a Washburn guitar
Yep.
or the old Sears catalog guitars. You remember?
Oh,
you
yeah,
wouldn't
yeah.
we wouldn't remember those,
Well, I mean,
but
I brought up my first guitar being like a Harmony. That's like a
catalog guitar.
That's a catalog
Okay,
guitar,
yeah,
man.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's those even just those cheap guitars you find at the pawn shop and stuff. Like,
And I mean, the Sears guitars from back in the day, even like 50s, 40s, there's Harmonies back then.
yeah.
Yeah. So that name's been around for a while. But they used to make them in Chicago. Now they make them
Really?
overseas.
Yeah, now all those brands. It's weird because a lot of those brands are made in like the same factory.
Yeah.
There's one factory that
and a
makes
bunch
it
of
for
different
like
brandings.
yeah, and that factory has like they have nets outside their windows because they literally have had so many employees
Wait,
jump out
the
the
music
windows.
factories?
Yeah, their guitar. I think it's. Oh, we're not liable for the things we say on here, a lot of what we're doing is.
Hell, maybe it ain't even true.
The thing is, it probably isn't. Like, I'm not citing sources. I don't have any. I'm recalling a fact that I pulled. I don't know
All right.
where. So
Let's just put it out there.
just no accountability or responsibility for any things we say. Don't believe anything
Nets
we say.
on the windows, people
But-
jumping out.
But I believe it was Court Guitars, their factory over in China. They had like nets outside their windows. They had an employee in the 2000s. Like, this isn't even an old thing. Like, start themselves on fire in the break room.
What in the?
Yeah, like did like a like those Tibetan monks that
Yeah.
he did like a protest like that. And
I bet some of that finish that they use on the guitars
too soon.
is pretty flammable. So maybe
but,
it was an accident. That's all I was trying to say.
Oh no. No, he was protesting. He started himself in the break room. He wasn't out on the floor. They were just like sitting around having lunch, and then Joe over the corner is suddenly in a fiery inferno. It's not funny. It's sad. It's sad. I think conditions have improved there, but this was back in the day. But it is interesting that they make so many guitars and don't have the greatest track record. But so many of us would not be involved in music without them. So
Gotta get your foot in the door, folks.
give and take. Gotta understand where you came from to understand where you're going.
Philosopher's
I don't
Stone
even know what
over
we got
here.
on that. We're talking about you with your first guitar.
But
I'm
that's
gonna
what
check-
it's all about. That's what it's all about.
Yeah,
though.
yeah.
Getting off on fun little tangents and exploring the corners that we sometimes don't get to.
That's what our podcast is going to be about, whether it should or shouldn't.
Who's to say?
So you got your first mandolin when you were 17, 18. Sorry for all the rattling, too. I'm also going to say, I don't know if these mics are going to be popping. We've never done this. So I don't know what quality this is going to turn out. If you're still listening at this point and you've stuck around and listened,
I feel like you are entitled to some kind of a reward.
yes, come up to me. You listen to this. If you're still listening to this, you come up to me at any point, any show,
Yeah.
and you say, Kukabunga.
What do they get?
Kukabunga.
What do they get?
You come up to me and
Kukabunga,
say,
folks.
Kukabunga,
What do you get?
and I'm going to give you a kiss on the lips.
I think we should throw in a sticker too, at least.
No.
I don't want him to feel gypped. All I got was this kiss on the lips.
Crusty ass.
Okay, kiss on the lips and half a sticker.
Half a sticker.
We're gonna rip it in half right in front of you.
You gotta
after
you
David.
gotta share the other half with a friend.
I'm gonna rip it while you kiss David. And that's how it's gonna go down, folks.
Kukabunga.
Kukabunga.
You come up to us and you say Kukabunga, we're gonna know what that means, and you're gonna be entitled to some stuff. So thank you for
Let's
listening.
not forget. Let's commit that to memory so
Oh,
we
I
don't
already-
forget.
I already forgot. But I'll remember when I listen back to this
Kukabunga.
podcast.
Kukabunga, folks.
Kukabunga.
All right.
So thank you again. Not sure what kind of quality we're dealing with here.
Bearing with us.
Bearing with us. So we talked about you getting your first mandolin, 17, 18. You started to get into folk music and bluegrass around that age.
Oh yeah.
Do you remember like your first paying band?
Well, I did some open mics before, but I think Justin Oak was.
Your first
First
paying gig?
paying band.
That was pre-shoestring?
Oh yeah.
Oh, no kidding. I
way-
didn't know that.
Way before Shoestring.
Wild. So how did that start?
There's a couple guys jamming at a buddy's, and I had a mandolin, brought it over. Actually, a couple years before then, I wasn't really playing music. I took like a couple year break. I just wasn't really into it, and I kind of got back into it by playing some folk with those guys, and we did shows for a couple years, and then that kind of fizzled out, and I was playing with a couple other people doing like open mics and stuff, no real shows. One of my friends, Dano, I was playing with him quite a bit. He's not around anymore, but we miss you, Dano. And then eventually me and him were at an open mic, and then I met Jeremiah and Kalani there.
Okay,
We
so those
formed-
two were jamming.
Yeah, jammed with them for a little bit, and then we started playing shows together, like jumping around on names, Didn't really have a name.
Do you remember any of those early names you jumped around from?
I think one of them was like Magic Orchard or some shit like that. Thanks for making me like bring one of those back.
Verb, noun. It's just
But yeah, and then we were playing a couple shows around Wausau, and then eventually Jay moved to like Illinois or something, or Ohio maybe it was, or Iowa actually I think it was, for a while, and then me and Kalani were just playing together still and going to shows, playing outside shows, going to festivals, playing at festivals.
Still weren't Shoestring at that point, or
No, but I think we came up with that name around one Jack Pine, and then Sarah Ludeman invited us to play at her festival at the time, the Yestival. And I don't know, we all kind of ended up hanging out. And then-
the Shoestring name though? Where did that come from?
Oh, it was just me and Kalani, riffing on names.
Expanding on the
sounded cool.
verb noun combination.
Yeah, pretty much.
that's
Yeah.
it's a cool for people that don't know. Shoestring Joe and the Star Thieves is
Thief.
Thief.
Not plural.
Is the band that Max came from before he joined the Old Pine Road. That was his.
We weren't playing a whole heck of a lot when I did join, though.
Yeah. They're playing more. They're still playing, still jamming around. Make sure you follow them. Sending a lot of love to Kalani, Jay, and Sarah. And, yeah, we got to get you guys in here for a River Street session one of these days when things aren't so chaotic.
That'd be sweet. I'd like
Yeah.
that. I'd like that.
I think after this winter, we're going to be caught up on a lot of our little, the second album will be done. That's been taking a lot of free time.
Ain't no time free.
Ain't no time is free. But, yeah, I really want to re-dive into the River Street sessions, do one with the our current lineup, Shoestring. I do know Troy Graham is going to be coming back.
Ooh,
He's going
Troy.
to be doing a session again this April.
Good.
I think I'm not sure if I talked to Jared Hubbard.
Oh,
Jared
yeah, we
Hubbard
got to
out
get
of
him in
Bedford.
here.
We've talked to him
Come
a couple
on.
times about
Yeah,
getting
we
him
got to
in
get
here.
him in here. Can't talk.
We have a couple of buddies, though, that I know have talked to me about coming in and doing some session work. So it's just been about
That'll be good.
finding some time. Will Young, he's a local guy who reached out about doing one.
Okay.
Got to get back to him. But those are a lot of fun. Looking forward to getting back to those. Love to get Shoestring here.
We'd like it too.
Well, that kind of gives you your history up to Shoestring and meeting Old Pine Road, right?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
We'll fill in the gaps. Next
we'll-
episode.
We'll be circling. We're going to be
We'll fill in
tying
the
some
gaps.
things.
We'll fill in the gaps.
I think we're going to try to make another episode today if it's possible. I've got lessons here. I'm going to teach for a bit. And then afterwards, I think we'll jump into this second episode a little bit, at least get it started, and go from there. So
Maybe even a little music on the second one.
yeah. The plan for this ultimately is to get a little bit better of a format. We'll get better at talking. Right now, we're just covering bases. I have 4 lines of notes.
This is the introduction.
This is a
Consider it the
learning-
introduction.
This is a learning process, and I think we've done a good job of
I'm happy with it.
have
I might
no
be
idea-
I might be
have no idea
biased.
if this even recorded successfully. Like, computers off and
Hey.
we could just been talking to
I'm
ourselves.
gonna say it did. I'm gonna be the good
I
cop.
appreciate it. World needs ditch diggers too.
But on this next episode, I would like to start.
Okay.
The next episode, we're gonna start to jump into branching out, which is the second Old Pine Road band album. First one, Laying Roots. Second one, Branching Out. The third one, I'm playing close to the chest. I'm not gonna tell anybody. You can pry it from my cold, dead fingers.
He doesn't even know himself.
Genuinely. if anybody else knows, please don't.
Just kidding, guys. He does.
Kookaburra.
Kookaburra. Don't forget.
The third album is gonna be Kookaburra.
So actually, there's 2 things you should be taking away from this podcast.
2 things too many. I want to say thank you to anybody who did listen this far.
I would like
who
to
has
too.
listened. Thank you to anybody who's listened to anything we do
Thanks,
or
guys.
giving us any iota of attention or focus or effort. It has made this room a possibility. The ability to buy my grandpa's house and put this studio in here and have my friend over to just rant about whatever. It's possible because of you guys, and I'm really grateful for it. So if you're one of those folks and you're sitting here listening, thank you very much. We're going to hit the dusty trails here and make sure this one worked out. And if it did, we'll get to work on the second one in a bit, and hopefully we'll have a couple episodes. But stay tuned. Like and subscribe if that's an option.
Thanks, y'all.
God bless. Love you guys.
And that's the Old Pine Way.
That's the Old Pine Way.